The headlines this hour: day 68 of the massive Gulf of Mexico oil spill. BP shares hit a 14-year low. President Obama's security advisor says dozens of Americans have joined terrorist groups. In Egypt, thousands protest against the use of torture by police. And in sports, final day of group stage matches. Brazil, Portugal, Spain, and Chile make it through to the next round.
It is 6:30 a.m. here in the Iranian capital, Tehran. This is Press TV's World News.
Many thanks for joining us this hour. Well, BP shares dropped to a 14-year low as investors lose confidence in the company's ability to stop the oil leak in the Gulf of Mexico. The oil giant has lost more than $100 billion of its value since the crisis started 68 days ago. The escalating cost of handling the spill and mounting legal liabilities has contributed to the sharp drop in BP's market value. To make matters worse, a tropical depression has formed over the west of the Caribbean Sea, and it's heading towards the leak site. The U.S. National Weather Service is forecasting that the massive storm will have strong winds in excess of 70 kilometers per hour when it reaches the Gulf. Authorities plan to move away all ships and siphoning equipment 5 days before the storm reaches the site. This would mean that oil will be pouring into the ocean unchecked for at least 14 days.
Our threshold to start taking action is 120 hours before gale force winds are forecasted. That can be a different set of mileage depending on the track and the speed of the storm. But in general, at about 120 hours out of the onset of gale force winds, we will start to redeploy the equipment from the well site, redeploy other equipment to safe venues so they can come in after the storm to reestablish production or to take part in rescue activities if it's the Coast Guard.
A U.S. official says dozens of Americans have joined terrorist groups and are posing a threat to the United States and its interests abroad. Deputy White House National Security Advisor for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism, John Brennan, made the comment during an interview with the Washington Times Daily. Brennan also said U.S. intelligence and law enforcement agencies have been tracking down U.S. nationals who pose security threats. Apparently, the U.S. president can order lethal strikes on U.S. citizens who have supposedly joined al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups. Missile attacks using drones in Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen have been part of such operations. The United Nations has condemned the practice, saying it may violate international humanitarian law. The American Civil Liberties Union has warned that the current program to kill suspected terrorists in foreign countries would create a precedent for other countries to follow.
Well, the U.S. government report shows first quarter growth in 2010 was lower than expected. In its final estimate, the U.S. Department of Commerce said gross domestic product grew at 2.7% annual rate. That is below the 3% pace the organization reported last month. Recent data suggests economic recovery has lost some momentum in the second quarter. The main reasons behind it are high unemployment, lower consumer spending, and faltering home building and purchases. U.S. veterans in Washington are sounding off about the recent change in leadership in Afghanistan.
Press TV's Colin Campbell reports from the World War II Memorial less than a mile away from the White House.
Hundreds of military personnel, past and present, come to the World War II Memorial each week. This week, their minds were with soldiers involved in 2 U.S.-led wars overseas and a changing of the guard in Afghanistan.
The people that don't agree, we can't afford to be in anarchy. The president had to make a solid decision. He made it. That's that, and we need to move on.
Good afternoon.
Earlier this week, President Barack Obama fired the U.S. commander in charge of military strategy in Afghanistan, General Stanley McChrystal. A reporter for the Rolling Stone magazine quoted McChrystal and his staff making damaging remarks about the Obama administration. Experts say McChrystal put Obama in an impossible position. McChrystal's replacement, General David Petraeus, the U.S. Central Forces commander.
It needed to be done. I respect and admire the general, and I'm a retired Army officer, but the president had no choice.
Veterans are used to following protocol. It was hard to find a vet who disagreed with the U.S. president's decision. But the McChrystal imbroglio also highlighted obstacles to find compromise between policy differences within the Obama administration. With the new right-hand man in Afghanistan, experts say it increases the amount of pressure on the president to show results. The current situation for U.S. troops in Afghanistan is less than desirable. Taliban are demonstrating strong resistance in various parts of Afghanistan.
The whole strategy in Afghanistan is Petraeus. Make no mistake about it. McChrystal was just a henchman bringing it about.
Obama insists there has only been a personnel change, not a policy change. It's expected that Petraeus will pick up where McChrystal left off. Veterans we spoke to never denied that at times they disagreed with their superiors, but many said they would have handled their disagreements differently. All of them agreed it would have been done behind closed doors. For Press TV, Colin Campbell at the World War II Memorial, Washington.
UK Prime Minister David Cameron says he wants British soldiers out of Afghanistan within 5 years. Cameron says British troops must be out of Afghanistan before the UK's next general election. The remarks come ahead of a meeting between Cameron and US President Barack Obama. The 9,500 British forces in Afghanistan are second in number only to the US.
On to Egypt, where thousands have taken to the streets to protest what they call systematic use of torture by police. Protesters in the port city of Alexandria demanded justice over the killing of 28-year-old Khalid Saeed. He was allegedly killed this month after police arrested him. The demonstrators were joined by the former Atomic Energy Agency chief Mohammed al-Baradei, who represents several Egyptian opposition parties. The police say, according to autopsy reports, Khalid died of suffocation when he tried to swallow a pack of drugs. Khalid's death has sparked protests this month, some turning violent. Opposition parties have used Khalid's case to press for more democracy in Egypt.
We are here to announce our objections to what happened to Khalid Saeed, to emergency law, to torture, and against not giving Egyptians their rights. We are pro-democracy.
Well, you're watching World News here on Press TV. Time for a quick reminder of the headlines this hour. Day 68 of the massive Gulf of Mexico oil spill, BP shares hit a 14-year low. President Obama's security advisor says dozens of Americans have joined terrorist groups. In Egypt, thousands protest against the use of torture by police. And final day of group stage matches, Brazil, Portugal, Spain, and Chile make it through to the next round.